Blessed love to the royal family, we say. Blessed love. Salam no tenestalin. Of course, we give thanks. I'm a second alo. Give thanks, glorifying Negusanagas. Haile Selassie. We're also thankful for this moment, the mystic vibration. This is one of our lectures within the series of lectures that we will be doing to accompany the promotion of our upcoming resurrection tour to Ethiopia, beginning on the 30th day of March. Honorable Priest Isaac, in your presence, I'm thankful again for all those who will be taking the time to go through this presentation with us, because we will be taking our time to present it to you. And as I said, as a part of the lecture series, it will be scientific as it relates to the subject area. It's not religious at all. It's definitely not fanciful. I know it may be a bit provocative, but the connection with Haile Selassie and Jupiter is what we will be getting into today. And for those who may be studied, you know, Jupiter is more than just a planet, but actually it's the planet that we will be speaking about today, more so than obviously the Roman god Jupiter and the understanding of what that is about. But we must mention it as far as where that arrived from, because a person would say that the planet Jupiter was named after the Roman god Jupiter. All right. But the Roman god Jupiter was fashioned from the planet that is called Jupiter. Now, in ancient Kemet, that planet was associated with Amun-Ra. So where is all of this coming from? Because, as I said, when it comes to the ancient astronomy, one must remember that the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament show it his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night show it knowledge. And of course, you know that we are speaking of the 19th Psalms within the scripture. So the heavens are the sky, the moon, the stars, the planets, what you observe, but not just what you can see, but even what you cannot see. Then, of course, in the book of Amos and some other good books, he mentions Pleiades, which we will speak about this evening. He also mentions the belt of Orion. Arcturus, the great star, is mentioned as well. The arc is to us in the Bootes constellation, which is considered to be the first constellation. So it's a very deep thing. We will mention Bootes this evening as well, as it relates to a certain spectacle that has been taking place in the month of January. So we must comprehend again that when the Greeks went to ancient Kemet to sit at the feet of Imhotep and the great ones to learn not only astronomy, but architectural design and building, and these things, mathematics in general, and science, general knowledge as well. This is what the ancient Africans of North Africa would have taught the great philosophers of Grecian culture who came into Africa to learn at the feet of the masters. I think you know this for sure. So what happened now? When they observed the movement of the heavens, because keep in mind, this is ancient astronomy we're dealing with. As I said, we are going to take our time. There's a great understanding we need to bring to the people. It may sound again like if we are going beyond the boundaries of understanding as we are linking our divine King of Kings with a planet. Yes, royal family, give thanks for your presence with us. In ancient Sumer, on the cuneiform, we observe that we have the sun and the 9 known planets revolving around the sun. I want you to keep this in mind, family. You have conventional knowledge, you have accepted knowledge, and then you have the truth. Now, according to the conventional education that we get in this system, in this world, the Sumerian civilization is the first civilization upon the planet. These are the people that invented writing, according to what I've learned in the history books. And when I say history books, in school, okay? And the Sumerian people were the first astronomers. It's in the history book, in the school, the same school, that is trying to manipulate your mind. They say that the Sumerians are the first civilization, which is a bit of manipulation too, but we're not arguing that point right now because the Sumerians are us, but let's keep on track here. So this first civilization, they mentioned the Indus Valley civilization, pardon me, and they also mentioned Kemet, ancient Egypt. But Sumer came out of the gate first, according to them. And Sumer has showed us on their cuneiform tablets the sun as a central figure too. Remember, we used to think, just a couple 100 years ago, we used to think that the sun went around the earth and all of that, the way that it appears, it has to be something like that. We did not think that it was a heliocentric solar system. We thought it was a geocentric, centered around the earth as such, in a literal sense, to obviously match with how it appears. I hope you're following me. So we used to think so. You know that. We used to think so. Yes, we used to think so. And we obviously, again, that's how his story is written. We just discovered this and we just discovered that, and somehow that we engulfs the whole world. But the ancient Sumer people, the Sumerians as you would call them, had the sun as the central figure here, and the planets going around the same. All the planets too. So what's the fella's name that discovered Pluto in 1930? And the one that discovered Saturn and all of these ones, Kepler and Cassini, and the ones they named the probes and these things after. They discovered all of the stuff that we never knew about before. But that's the same system I'm talking about, that insists that we're dealing with the first civilization here. All right, good. Now, I think that point is well made. So with understanding again, when the Greeks would have come to the feet of the great granddaddies, and they were taught the science of astronomy, what is ancient astronomy. There were certain observations, really, you could say, that were made. And for example, as I would have highlighted in a previous program not too long ago, the temple of Dendara, the temple of Heteru, who is referred to as Hathor, in ancient Kemet again. We're talking about maybe 3,000 years BCE, 5,000 years ago. On the ceiling of the temple, you have the zodiac belt constellations. This is very important. You have them in the order that they are seen. in the zodiac. So this is not some sort of, European mythological makeup and Sagittarius and Capricorn and all of that stuff. This is from ancient Africa. So we can see here now in the fullness that you have Taurus right next to Gemini, and the precession of the equinox also shows you Leo right next to Virgo, and everything is in perfect order. So when those individuals who would have come from Europe and they were studying the anciency in these great temples, and of course they would have to observe the movements of the heavens at night and at day. They would observe, for example, this is just an example I'm giving you now. They would have observed the planet Mars, which we refer to as Tahuti. And Socrates and Plato and whoever came, however it went, would say, oh, Imhotep, because according to the great Ivan van Sertima, they have some that never even went to ancient Kemet, and they, because of prestige, the whole prestigious nature of going to Kemet to learn at the feet of Dzoja and the great gods was something that, many ones would literally fib about and put it in their memoirs and spread the word that they went and came back when they were in some other city hiding out. Ivan van Sertima, the great. So whoever it was, Master Imhotep, yes, Socrates, that red star that is moving so fast. Tonight it's here, and then tomorrow it's over there. What star is that? Oh, Socrates, that's not a star. That represents Tahuti. That represents the ibis bird. That is the planet Tahuti, because we didn't really call it Mercury. I'm talking about Mercury now. And Mercury itself is known, this is Imhotep speaking, this planet now, Tahuti, the wise one, he's the messenger, he's swift, he brings forth wisdom and knowledge and information. His wife is Shishat, she's the keeper of the library. She's the one that has the ganja leaf on her head as her symbol. So Master Imhotep, Socrates, hold on, I'm not finished speaking yet. So the Tahuti spirit embodies that planet, and it is the messenger, and you see it represents, this is me talking now, it represents even Gabriel in Christology, the messenger. So you see, when Thales and whoever it is, and Aristotle and these fellas, when they got hold of this information, what it is, they took the science. They are the ones that created your horoscope. Remember, they're the ones that took Gemini. They never knew nothing about no Gemini. It wasn't Gemini. It was Shu and Tefnut. Shu, the god of the heavens, the god of the with his wife at the top of the zodiac belt, where the sun is during the time of summer, its most northern point, Shu and Tefnut, also known as Hu and Sa, Akkadians and Sumerians. So they took the male and female principle and turned Shu and Tefnut into Castor and Pollux, two little boys. A man and his wife, you turn it into two little boys. And that is the Gemini that you know today, the twins. Serious stuff. So I'm just showing you how they would have distorted, the science as it relates to Sagittarius, and how they prepare him in the presence of a centaur, like half man, half horse. One of these days, we will get into that. That's a lecture by itself. The concept of them turning Sagittarius into a centaur, half man, half horse, and it goes deep. It goes deep into the Ethiopian artistry within the church. I'm serious. And Chedas Girgis, which is known as Saint George, and Horus slewing the dragon, the Sagittarius, and why they would have portrayed it. It's not a centaur, but there's a reason why they portray it as a centaur. And it's deep, and we'll get there when the time comes. But let's stick on the subject area here. But the point is, they would manipulate the heavens. So you have these planets with the Roman names, you have constellations with Greek names, and you have stars with Arabic names. That's really how the heavens is put together at the moment. So they would return home and turn Tahuti into Mercury. Huh? So in other words, as I said, first of all, they learned of the planet that they now call Mercury. They created a god figure. They didn't name Mercury after their god as such in that way. They had no gods. They didn't even understand what that thing was all about. We never used the term God for sure. You know that. In fact, they invented God. We were showing them something totally different of a higher realms. But anyway, they took it back to Greece and created Mercury and say, yeah, man, Mercury is the messenger. Come on, go and check your Greek philosophy or your Roman philosophy. I think Mercury may be. And so this Roman god is the god of speed, the god with the wings on his feet. The Greeks, Hermes, they call him Hermes. Trismegistus. So this Mercury is fast. Now, what did they learn about Mercury in Kemet? They learned that it was the fastest planet. Check the science, eh? We haven't really begun, we just kind of warming up the place. Nothing started yet, trust me. Because this is a scientific presentation tonight here. But Mercury is the fastest planet that goes around the sun. 88 days it takes to fulfill that Earth days we are speaking of. So that philosophy, and it's the messenger. That philosophy was put into Mr. Mercury with the shoes with the wings, and I don't think he has on any clothes. Maybe he have a thing wrap around his shoulder and a leaf in front of his private part, and he would have the helmet with the wings too. He was extremely fast. His speed to be compared only maybe second to, I'm not sure, with Nike, the goddess of speed. Nike, eh? Just do it. Yeah. I tell you, everything is Freemasonry, So at the same time now, this science is what went into all these planets and what they mean. Follow me, family. I want you to really follow me here. Not just how fast they go around the planet and all of these things, but the value of their makeup, their gravitational ability, their magnetospheres, their radiation bands, their cosmic energy, magnetic, electromagnetic field, all of these things. And as I said, their makeup, whether it's silicon, iron, calcium, their makeup also affects iron, whatever it is, what is taking place, well, in the solar system, but particularly right now we are concentrating on planet Earth. So this is why the ancient astronomers could relate the ancient heavenly movements with prophecy, number one, but planets and constellations could be related to plants, yes, and to organs of even the human goody, the human body, your anatomy, yes. This is why even your birth charts and these things are of importance. The ancients already understood the science. So Jupiter is known as the Lord of the sky, the master of the heavens. That's what the name means, the sky father. Jupiter. You hear people talk about the sky daddy. That's Jupiter. And in the same way we just explained Mercury and so forth and so forth, Jupiter in the Roman mythology is the head of the gods, the master of the gods. You know, you have different gods that have different qualities. Well, Jupiter rules the sky and thunder and lightning and all of that kind of stuff there. Okay, good. So we understand that Jupiter is Amun Ra, which is the head of the Neter in certain aspects, you know. Remember the Neter, the Neteru, the ancient Kemet. I mean, it's not no different gods. You see, the terminology and the etymology does twist up the mind, eh? Dyslexia is just English itself, English. But the understanding of it is that the Neteru, or what we call the gods of the hieroglyphs, these are the principles of the universal one, the intelligent nucleus. And this is just the science we use. That's kindergarten stuff, you know. Hieroglyphs and all of that, kindergarten stuff, really, as such. That's why it's in colors and pretty and look nice and beautiful and wow, children will marvel. And saying it's kindergarten is no disrespect, you know. It was a simple way to express the deeper universal knowledge way beyond the kindergarten. So get what I'm saying? Good. So anyway, so Amun-Ra already represented the planet called Jupiter. But again, Aristotle and these fellas and you know, with Alexander and whoever, they went forward and went back and developed their own concept, and those before them and those after them, wherein you see the qualities within even Jupiter. Okay, definitely, we can forget about them now and move on. So the science here, we're dealing with the fifth planet from the sun. Obviously, I think we all consider, we all know that it is the largest of the planet, the most powerful of the planet. And it is in such a way powerful that its barycenter literally gives the sun a specific cycle that is unlike any other gravitational pull of the solar system. So I will explain that. Don't worry, that I'm explaining that in detail right now. You see, what we're going to take a look at this evening is the gravity of Jupiter as one, the magnetosphere, very important, and the radiation belt. And we're going to utilize even the reality of these components of that planet with the event of 1994, when the shoe maker Levy comet crashed into Jupiter, sealing on the 23rd day of July. We're going to get into all of that in a moment. Now, remember, as I said, this is a part of the lecture series that we are doing in relation to the upcoming tour here in Ethiopia. In the description below this video, there is a link to a previous video, which many of you may have seen, as it relates to the program for the upcoming tour, but the whole aspect of how you can be a part of it. It's really a brochure. So without giving the great detail of the upcoming two-part tour, the Resurrection Tour, let me just specify that it's in two parts. It begins on the 30th day of March. We're talking now 2026. And of course, as I said, you have the double resurrection, really. That's what it is. Because as I mentioned before, and this is all a part of the lesson, and this is teachings coming here. As I mentioned before, you know, us as Bobo Shanti, we celebrate the resurrection of the on the Good Friday day after our Lenten fast. I think you know of that. Now, the Good Friday that we utilize is the Good Friday that, well, the world utilizes. But Ethiopia, its Good Friday and the Easter Sunday too is like a week after. So there's a difference. And as always, that's the case even this year. So we will be having a two-part tour. The first tour will literally seal up, run into and seal up just after the Easter Sunday, according to the Western world. And then the second tour, which will take us to Aksum and Lalibela, the second tour would itself go into the Good Friday aspect of the Ethiopian celebration and the Easter Sunday aspect according to the Ethiopian calendar. I hope you comprehend what I'm saying there. So as you know, again, the 50% is still on both halves. They both have two different program as it relates to the offers. Again, the link is in the description below. We took more time than we'll take here to explain the difference between both halves of the tours as it relates to their 50% offer. The 50% offer for the Ethiopian Resurrection Part 1 tour will come to an end at the end of January. So again, and a few things too, you know. I wonder if you recall that we have the 50% on your ancient astronomy natal chart reading. Of course, give thanks to those who would have received their natal chart and are quite pleased with, you know, the readings that they would have also received as well. All of that is ancient astronomy, family. Your natal chart reading is ancient astronomy. What do you think we do? You think we just pick up some sort of, it's years we studying this, you know. Sorry to get so excited. I don't know what happened there. But anyway, no, because people think this is Donald Duck and Goofy. It's years we studying this. We don't make up nothing and come pretending anything. We sit behind the books, man, before computers and all of these things were even kicking off. Yeah, man. I mean, don't feel no way, you know. This is a real science that you get in here from your brother. You know, when we went and certified ourselves in archaeoastronomy, you know, in some ways, it's because this is what the world desires. Let's see what you have on paper. Well, whether you have it on paper or not, you have it in your head. So understanding how each planet, because again of its makeup and distance and all of these things relates to even the organs of our body. It's something that's a real factual science. And the ancients understood that. All of the machinery that exists today, trust me, just check the pyramid alone. The science within the pyramid is still beyond the science of today. Things that they're still discovering. Anyway, I don't need to put in that. I just showed it to you. A carving on a tablet, already explaining all the planets that are there. We didn't have to wait for none of these fellas to discover anything. But anyway, so even your natal chart reading, let's get back here. Your natal chart reading, of course, remember we have a 50% off on your natal chart reading. So, and that is also coming to a conclusion at the end of January. I've spoken about that, so you know of that. And the same thing to be said of the ancient astronomy course, the rudiments of ancient astronomy. You know, I will always definitely blow my horn for that one. I don't really toot my horn for too many things, you know. But as my brethren Coyote Rasta said, sometimes if you don't blow your own horn, nobody can blow it for you and you're gonna get rusty. So sometimes but the ancient astronomy course is really, you know, in all respect to even my Prince, Honorable Prince Alamase, who is really the master. And this was several years ago when most of these graphics were put together. As you know, these courses continue to grow as well. But the main aspect of it, the graphics off the chain, real thing, the animation, and of course the information as well that we provide. So it is a very credible and in-depth course designed really for the mature mind. But I always recommend that you serve it to the teenagers. It's something, it's not lengthy, not boring, in short clips as well, bite size. All of our courses, our homeschool program, international homeschool program, bite sizes. So easy to swallow, easy to take in, very entertaining. You know, the international homeschool program at this time is for the younger children, those who are just developing as such. So this is very important. I always say that because many ones would want the ancient astronomy rudiments course maybe for a small child. It is better that you do the international homeschool program. Very inexpensive. It lasts for the whole academic year, approximately 10 months. And then at the same time, it has its own astronomy program designed for little babies. And I mean, hey, listen, designed for big people too, Trust me, because the levels of the science astronomy I'm talking about, you know, at least 50 classes in the astronomy that we have in the international homeschool program. Very, very, very good for the little ones, even if they're going to school already. That doesn't make a difference. This is what I'm saying, bite size. Bite size, it's up to you, according to the system we have set up, to indulge in it as much as you want. You could for the whole day, you know, because there's so many things that are available, especially with the international homeschool program. You know, after you collect all the different materials that are available, I mean, you just have a wealth of knowledge and fun programs and beautiful videos online that you can connect with the young ones. International homeschool program, you know. But anyway, that has no 50% off, but again, very, very inexpensive for all of what you get in there. But the 50% again is the rudiments of ancient astronomy, at the same time, the natal chart reading, and of course, the national or the resurrection to Ethiopia. And of course, I'm sure you would have also seen the review of our previous tour. So let me just say this too. This is all in the promotion too, that the previous tour that we just did, the nature of the first part of the resurrection tour will be like what we just did. So those of you who saw the reviews, the reviews in general, we had a main review recapping the tour, but of course we would have been reviewing it in other programs even prior to that. You would have gotten the reviews from those who would have been on the tour with us, and we have more to upload, so you will see that tour will be very similar to the first half of the resurrection tour. I mean, if something ain't broken, why fix it? It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. We even learned more along the way, even to make the experience better for those of you who would be coming for the 30th of March. So again, you know, just had to take some time to get into it so you clearly understand that you still have time to take advantage of the 50% off. This is a serious mission here. And then at the same time, as I said, you have the link below, and that will for sure give you more information. Remember, we covered most of those key museums. We covered the Palace of Haile Selassie, several palaces actually, the Grand Palace, the Jubilee Palace as we know it as. We also covered the University Palace as well. And then at the same time, the Menelik and the Second Palace. You know, Unity Park is really Menelik the Second's palace yard, massive yard, the throne room, the banquet room, and of course, you know, they have a beautiful zoo right now. So many things that we experienced, the Sidamo, Wando Gennett waterfalls and hot springs, all of this is a part of the first half, the Science Museum and Toto Park, all of this, the Battle of Adwa, all of this is a part of the first half. The second half, a bit shorter and more intense as it goes into Aksum and Lalibela. So family, press the link below. Get more information. Contact us, Priest Isaac Institute at gmail.com, and you can get a copy of the actual material, a copy of the brochure for yourself and go through the information and have a good understanding of what this tour is all about. As you can obviously see, Farai is serious business. Previous tour was marvelous, and the one before that was great. Serious business. Give thanks continually for the life giver and the keeper of life. Now, as I said, we're dealing with fifth planet. And this fifth planet is 5 times the distance of the Earth from the sun. Now, as I said, you know, the mystic of Jupiter, one of the main things that stands out, first of all, the gravitational pull. I want to deal with that even before we deal with the makeup of this hydrogen giant. Now, when it comes to the gravitational pull of the planet Jupiter itself, as I said, its distance is quite interesting. You know, you have the planets very close to each other, the Sun, the Earth, Mars, and Venus, and then you have this long space. Then you meet that planet Jupiter, and don't take for granted the number 5. I'm talking about the 5th planet, and its distance 5 times that of planet Earth. Good. So that is also very important. So it has a strong gravitational pull. You see, Jupiter, within its own sense and its own power, there is no planet that reacts like it. It has what is known as, it releases more energy there and heat than it receives from the sun. No other planet does that. Literally releases more energy than they receive from the sun. So the barocentre of the sun and Jupiter is a very unique barocentre for a planet that is revolving around a star. You might see a similar barocentre within the whole aspect of 2 stars, but for a planet to have such a gravitational effect on its main star is something that is quite unusual. Now you may be saying, so exactly what we're talking about here. So the barocentre is the point, the focal point really, between 2 objects, whether they are just revolving around each other, or even in the case of Jupiter and the sun, where they are, Jupiter is revolving around the sun. What happens is that Jupiter has a specific barycenter with the sun that is just above the surface of the sun, which means that the gravitational pull that Jupiter has on the sun, and before I say that, every planet has a gravitational um, um, pull and affects other planets as well, even minutely. All of this is important. This is why I'm showing you that even when we deal with the natal chart, again, I must say, we always highlight that the presence of Jupiter in whatever constellation it may be, at the time of your birth, is second only, really, to where it would have been at the time of where the sun would be at the time of your birth. The sun, the moon, and Jupiter. The moon only because of its close proximity. Remember, as I would have showed you, when we were doing the natal chart readings, that the possibilities and the characteristics within planets and constellations, the planet itself, we all have each planet, and these potentials are within us. And again, depending on not just the constellation that they're in, it has to do with the location, the coordinates of the sky, of the heavens, where specific energy fields are. That's what that is really all about. And the alignment with planets and that specific coordination, right ascension and declination, has an effect on everything that is taking place on planet Earth, because that's the alignment that we have. Anyway, so Jupiter, as it revolves around the sun, what it does, because of its strong gravitational pull, it gives the sun this slight tug that makes the sun go around in a small circle. So if you look at the diagram here, you will see this red circle. This is the circle that the sun travels on as Jupiter goes around it in its yearly move. So a Jupiter year is 12 to 13 Earth years, between 12 and 13 Earth years. So 12 years for Jupiter, for planet Earth, is 1 year as such for Jupiter to return to the exact spot, like how we return to the exact spot, whether it's the exact, in exactly 1 year, it's spring again. That's the same thing for Jupiter with 12 years. All right. So again, highlighting without a doubt the strong gravitational pull that it has. I just explained that, no other planet would have exerted more energy, which we will get into deeply in a moment, than the planet Jupiter, in the sense that, well, they don't express such energy emissions, number one, but it emits more heat and energy than it gets even from the sun. So when an individual observes the planet Jupiter again, one of the things that stands out is obviously its beauty. And it also, as you would have seen a moment ago, has its own rings. And the rings of the planet Jupiter are of such very beautiful as well, but they're much lighter than Saturn. And in many cases, you have infrared and these different aspects of technology with the Hubble and the Juno spacecraft that would have been orbiting around the planet and taking many of the pictures that are even used in this presentation. We have pictures from again, Hubble and Juno, and some of them are graphic designs, and some from Astrum and other aspects of NASA as well. Within the makeup of the planet, royal family, you would see the main spot that is known as the Great Red Spot. That anyone that studies astronomy or even watches them History Channel programs on space and so forth and so forth, you would know of the Great Red Spot, seen here in either ultraviolet or infrared. But the Great Red Spot now is really like a severe combination of just the natural nature of the planet and exactly what is taking place under its thick cloud. So it has a very, what you call toxic, thick cloud, some 55 kilometers in thickness. And underneath the planet, you have chemical compounds that are colliding, what you call chromophones. And this chromophomic activity, when it comes to colliding with the UV rays from the very same sun, creates under, when it meets the cloud cover, creates this pretty beautiful spectacle that we see as the bands on Jupiter. And of course, the bands on Jupiter, we're talking about the lines that go across like storms, like a great hive of activity, some going to the east and some going to the west. Yeah, they're on the planet Jupiter. So this has a lot to do with the energy that the planet carries. It had 3 storms that merged in 1997, I think. They completed their merger, but the merger began after the Shoemaker-Levy comet would have hit Jupiter in July again of 1994, which we'll go into in more depths in a moment. So now the magnetosphere, very important, royal family. Please follow me. Everything that I'm saying will really return to where it belongs in a moment. You will see how it all links, even with the title of the presentation, because we're dealing with Amun-Ra, the king of the gods. Jupiter has a magnetosphere, which is compared to none. There's none that can compare to it there. And the magnetosphere of a planet, what it does, just as the magnetosphere of planet Earth, it protects the fragile aspect of the planet from solar winds, the solar winds of the sun. So the magnetosphere really, the bands of that makeup really takes the solar winds and divert it to the poles of the planet. It happens not just on Jupiter, Saturn, the Earth. That's just a natural thing. So what happens now, and obviously some planets, universally we're speaking here, would have a stronger magnetic field, magnetic sphere, sphere than other planets. All right, magnetosphere. Getting my word mixed up there. All right, let's hear. So what happens now? We have the spectacle that we call the aurora, which is the northern lights and the southern lights too. I don't know how many of you would have ever seen the northern lights, the spectacle that you see in the northern hemisphere when, it gets bright and, like some green and light green and light blue lights bouncing, up and down in wave-like fashion. Well, the aurora on Jupiter are constant. They never stop, extremely bright. And you would have seen, this is a literal pattern now from what would have been seen, this one in ultraviolet form. from one of those crafts. I think it was Juno. So the magnetosphere of the planet itself would create such an impact, just like the magnetosphere of Earth, but the magnetosphere of Earth is 14 times less powerful than that of Jupiter. And hence, the aurora expression, as what you're looking at here, is 14 times stronger, and it is constant even on the planet Jupiter. So as I just said again, clearly, for those who may not know, the magnetosphere channels solar wind to the planet's pole. Okay, you learn all of that, in the rudiments of ancient astronomy, eh? You should get them classes, royal family. I'm very serious. You learn all of that stuff when you you learn all of that. Even the little babies learn those things in the astronomy courses that we have for the international homeschool program. This one is Hubble. This is infrared. And this is also at the poles of Jupiter. So at the same time, because there's a science that is known as, I'll remember it in a moment. Let's continue. So at the same time, yes, spectroscopy. And that's a science that deals with the whole aspect of wavelengths and the spectrum of light, wherein they emit certain spectrums. They use the white light and if you want to say, cut out certain aspects of the spectrum so that minerals and the makeup of different things can appear by the use of the color and the different aspects of the spectrum. So in other words, that's why you hear about ultraviolet rays and infrared rays. It's all a part of that science. I think it's called spectroscopy, if I am correct. Now, so anyway, that is what is used to see certain aspects of, well, again, many things, but we're dealing with Jupiter now. So this is from the Juno spacecraft. And the Juno would have detected these vortices. Imagine that, on the planet Jupiter. 9 vortices with the main vortex in the middle, extremely large, and the 8 other in somewhat of a square form around the main vortex. And that is at the northern pole and of Jupiter. Amunura, we refer to it as, and Kisha in another ancient Akkadian, Sumerian, Ansha and Kisha, Saturn and Jupiter. And because of the magnetosphere, this level of activity would take place. Very important, keeping in mind we're dealing with, again, a planet that literally gives the sun a tug. That is not something natural at all. Remember, again, all planets have their gravitational pull, etc., but it's not in any form affecting the sun in any way whatsoever. But Jupiter, for sure, has a strong effect on the sun and, of course, its movement. We highlighted again the great red spot. So now, the radiation band now. Listen to me, family. And we're there. The radiation band, again, all planets would have such. But what the radiation band, particularly of Jupiter, does is that it destroys any foreign object, at least most foreign objects, that would approach its atmosphere. So Jupiter would have crippled probes as well, and would have destroyed asteroids and comets, which we are getting into right now. Very important. This is why, again, the radiation belt of Jupiter stands out, because of the energy that it has, the power that it has, that it can, again, cripple and destroy even comets that approach, its domain. Now that brings us to the meat of the matter today. Now, in 1994, a specific comet by the name of Shoemaker-Levy 9 was discovered. Well, not discovered, but they realized, pardon me, they realized it was discovered before. And, discovered, they just uncover something and they diss the whole program. Anything you hear that's discovered, even Columbus discovering the West is they uncover it and just diss the whole program. Imagine that. But anyway, so in 1994, pardon me, they came to the conclusion that this comet will collide with the planet Jupiter sometime in the month of July. Very interesting, because 1994 was a very important year, especially for Bobo Shanti. But what's interesting about this comet now, there's certain things that really stood out. Now, first of all, it's what you call a periodic comet, meaning that its orbit is less than 200 years, and it had a very unique orbit, let's put it that way. The angle of it, and it went around Jupiter. Now, remember, comet coming from the Kuiper belt and the Oort belt and these places way beyond the solar system. These comets go around the sun. So, of course, you have comets like Halley's comet, Halley's comet, another comet, now he comet, So Halley's comet is considered to be one of those outstanding comets, and Halley's comet for sure, as you know, goes around the sun. But this comet here, when it comets, it goes around the planet Jupiter. That is the comet we are talking about, Shoemaker-Levy. But on a previous round around the planet Jupiter, Shoemaker-Levy was broken up into several parts. This is quite interesting. And again, it shows the power of Jupiter as it rips the comet apart in preparation for when it comes around. Again, it will collide into Jupiter, not as a whole comet, but in fragments. So the scientists gathered together as the comet was approaching, and the scientists themselves, all of them packed into one room, Well, I guess in other places they were packed into one room as well. And they're observing the approach of the Shoemaker-Levy as it was scheduled to hit, again, Jupiter sometime in middle July. So obviously, as time got closer and closer, they understood, more precisely the date that the comet would hit. Now, the comet again was in fragments now, and the comet would have begun its onslaught. And before that, let me show you, this is just obviously a graphical expression of how the comet would have been destroyed, broken up into several pieces, on one of its encounter with the planet Jupiter. Please, family, bear with the God here. So from the 16th day of July until the 23rd day of July. The comet, in its fragmented state, known as Shoemaker Levy 9, would have begun its onslaught on Jove. Jove is another name for Jupiter. And each impact would have sent such repercussions throughout the universe itself, definitely throughout the solar system. It says that the first impact released plumes going some 1,900 miles up in the air, all of this coming from the Hubble and the Juno spacecraft. And because of the strong gravitational pull of Jupiter, it was quite surprising that these activities could take place in the sense of the smoke, getting so high. But the fragments or the sub-comet continued to bombard Jupiter, and it is said that the hardest hit that it got was on the 18th of July from fragment G. I'm telling you, the seventh letter, and fragment G now itself, number 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, number 7, according to them, which hit on the 18th, was the hardest hit, which left the greatest impression on the south coast or southern hemisphere, of the planet. Meaning that now, this is a NASA photo here, meaning that the southern aspect of the planet is really the part of the planet that got bombarded. And this is similar to the size of the Great Red Spot. The indenture, the mark that the Comet G made, fragment G made, the diameter is that of planet Earth, similar to the diameter of the Great Red Spot, of which it was not too far from the Great Red Spots. It is after this that these 3 new storms that would have developed began to merge and became one storm. The 3 storms merged together and became one storm. Yes, it's called the Red Spot Junior. We will speak a little more about that before we seal this up. So the 18th day, that was the day when the 7th fragment, G, would have collided, and it continued and continued and continued until it came to an end on the 23rd day of July, the 102nd Earth Strong, really, birthday of Emperor Haile Selassie I. And as I said, remember, all these programs we do prior to even these other programs, they're connected in many ways. Even when we did the program and it relates to Menelik II and even the feast of the Passover and the setting of the constellation, which is known as the Serpent Holder. Because in 1993, remember, there was a feast that the Honorable King Emmanuel Charles Edwards would have carried up. The Feast of the Passover, 1993, all them times, I know we're watching Shoemaker Levy. And in 1993, the 10th of December, we already did them science for those who are really with us. And the setting of the serpent holder, etc., etc. But anyway, he said that he was looking to make a move. Again, we cover all of them ancient African vibration. And he did make the move in 1994, 31st of March, less than 2 months. Well, several months before the collision of Shoemaker Levy, 3 to 4, Shoemaker Levy hitting Jupiter. At that time, it was big news. At that time, the Rwandan genocide also began. So when you observe this now, as I said, within 3 to 4 months, the planet Jupiter would have been bombarded by Shoemaker Levy, sealing on the Earth Day of Emperor Haile Selassie I. Because it's a cycle, what people call death and resurrection. This is a very key time on the planet. That's what I'm highlighting in general. And we're talking about the planet now, Jupiter now, that its gravitational pull is such that it has a strong effect to the point that it not only has the sun going around in circles, no other planet does that to the sun. Jupiter does that to the sun. But Jupiter attracts many objects that would bombard not just Earth, but other planets. Jupiter gets 2,000 to 8,000 collisions every year. So just understand even that philosophy. When we say that the ancient ones of Africa, not Greece and Rome, this is not their stuff. This is something they learned from us. We always understood that the heavenly bodies not only have a connection with the human being, not only has a connection with potentials and characteristics, but even organs of the body and plants and so forth and so fifth. We knew this because we studied the movements of these objects. We studied their composition. We had that ability. We studied their makeup and again their gravitational pull, and we studied their magnetosphere. We understood. You don't think we knew that the sun was being tugged by Jupiter? Remember the feathered snake, the cycle of the sun. We're talking about the feathered snake, the snake with wings that we utilize from ancient of days, Tutankhamun, even the Mayans and the Quetzalcoatl. That's a very in-depth science that only was discovered a few years ago when they realized that the computer graph of the 11-year sunspot cycle and sunspot cycles in general resembles the snake with wings, some of them even precise to some snake with wings and feathers that they would have found that existed 4,000 years ago. My point is that we understood this science a long time ago, not just when Hubble and these fellas came around and their spacecrafts that have been named after them. Do I need to remind you of the Sumerians and their tablets, the oldest civilization? Okay, so yes, here we have a planet now that has been named the god of the sky. And the Romans take it and create a whole philosophy where their God, before they were dealing with Christianity and Jesus and so forth, they were dealing with Jupiter. That was their God. They understood the science. We didn't have it as our God in ancient Kemet. The Neter Amun-Ra represented it. Very high Neter in the Neteru. But we were this is not religion here. He represents a specific aspect of the universal one. Again, the intelligent nucleus. So Jupiter even taking 12 years to go around the sun. You see, it brings us back to the three wise kings following the star, to not only the date of the birth of Christ, but to the place of the birth of Christ. Astronomy. 12 to 13 years is highlighted in the scripture when the Christ became a man as such, when he told his mother and father when he was in the temple mesmerizing the officials that he is gone now to do his father's work. Hey, mommy, daddy, I'm going to do my father's work. Sorry, can't help you anymore. No more house building. I have the father's house to build. And he gone. In the ancient theology, in the Greek and the Roman too, and you find it, of course, in ancient Kemet, where the young Christ figure, the Charis becomes a man at the age of 12. It's just science. Haile Selassie getting that title, the Deshamak, again, at the age of 13. So you see the science, and remember, the Christ was fully 12, according to the scripture. That's 13. Remember, don't get the numbers mixed up in it. 12 to 13. That's why it's one and the same. When you were born, you were not 1 year old. It took a whole year before they could say, okay, you are one now. So now that you have completed your first year, you've gone into your second year. But somehow people will still say that you're 1 year old. You see, so that's a reverse psychology they use on us. You have finished with one. Now you've gone into two. You're on the second mission now. How old are you? I'm 1 year old. No. You see, yes, I understand. You have completed 1 year. Sometimes you are halfway through the second year, 3/4 way through the second year. Next week is your birthday, and you're still talking about your 1 year old. When you're looking to complete your second year, finally, bam, you seal the second year. You're 2 years old now. You've been on the two track for a while. So the point I'm making is like the changing of the ages. There is a slow, dimensional shift from one period to the other period, and it's highlighted in the heavens. And so the point is, Jupiter is at one spot, and in a Jupiter year, it comes back to the same spot. So anyone, wherever Jupiter was when you were born, when you are 12, 13, Jupiter will return to that same spot. Just like the sun returns to the same spot on your so-called birthday. Now, this is very important because it again shows that 12-year period, a very strong gravitational pull. That's the same cycle that the sun is going through, as well as it's going around that little circle. It does that in 12 years then, because Jupiter is going around it in 12 years. And according to the theology of many, which comes from the science of the heavens, the Christ figure becomes a man exactly 1 year on Jupiter. Yeah, 12 to 13 years. So that is to show you now, again, another connection with the planet as it relates to that God symbol, the dash mark. And the planet, I will explain in a moment, that attracts all the dangerous objects to it to save and protect planet Earth. So I don't think, look at the date right there on the map, 23rd day of July. (1994). I don't think that it is no coincidence, no mistake. It just happens to be impossible. We're talking about Haile Selassie here. Hold on, let me explain this, because many of us must understand. You see the date, Let me be clear before we move that. 23rd of July. Let me highlight this for us so we can get this straight without any confusion. The Maui Haile Selassie, Remember for sure that period that we call exile. is the crucifixion. The five wounds that Christ bore. From the 5th of May, I'm talking about May being the 5th month, the 5th day, 1936 to 1941, exactly 5 years apart. When Haile Selassie went into the underworld, I know it's something that we cover several times, and I'm sure there's a good amount of you that grasp this concept very, very clearly. But there are those that may still don't even know what you're talking. Tell me that, hey, you know history great, and wait, the exile, as they call it, of Haile. And then at the same time, this is why pure language from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. And that's why he could do that, because he was wise enough to put Ethiopia into the League of the European Nations. And then at the same time, believe it or not, again, that really kind of held back Europe from a total onslaught of just ganging up with Mussolini and taking over Ethiopia. Because although it should not have gone thus far, the king shouldn't have even had to go to the League of Nations to speak. Because according to their protocols, when one member of the league attack another member, the rest of the league is supposed to sever themselves from him, or cut him off and ostracize him, and so forth and so forth. But none of that happened. They continue to pamper with Mussolini. And they continue to bring upon the league the shame that would have destroyed them in the end, when the king made his prophetic speech. So we understand that this represents the 5 bleeding wounds again. Even those of you who would have seen the documentary, The Footsteps of the Emperor, and when they say that the lady was saying, the nanny was saying that as a child, taking care of the children, as a teenager, I guess, taking care of the children of Haile Selassie and grandchildren and what have you. There was once when they were listening to the war on a gramophone, a record was playing, something of the sort. And she said that the king was shedding tears. And the tears would have splashed on his hand where his hands were severely damaged. And she learned afterwards that it was the mustard gas that Graziani and Mussolini and these Bagdaglio and these fellas would have brought down and rained down on the Ethiopians. The king was on the battlefield. The king was behind the anti-aircraft gun, the only leader, the only head of state, not to address the League of Nations, yes, that, the only head of state that was on the battlefield during World War II and that which preceded it. So in other words, Hitler wasn't on no battlefield. You have any picture of Hitler firing any gun, or I don't mean practice now. I mean while the war is going on. Like Hitler over there firing shots and Stalin on the other side firing shots. Nothing goes up. Mussolini not on no battlefield. George the Sixth or the Fifth, whoever it was, wasn't on any battlefield. I think it was the Sixth. Who else was around them time? Nobody on no battlefield. What's his name? Franco. Nobody on no battlefield. Some of them, yes, were soldiers. Don't get me wrong, and had their time for sure. But this is the major battle now. Haile Selassie is the only head of state that you see on any battlefield, and clearly in movie reels, in pictures, in biography, it's all over. The king with the Gatling gun, and not the Gatling gun, the anti-aircraft gun, and other machinery. So yeah, no, I'm just showing you reality, because even in Ethiopia, man, It's as if the king, like run away and something and something. Yeah, you still get a little of that here and there. So that means obviously the history, the tariq needs to be reinforced. Very important. The people can't forget the king. We will never make that happen. Holy Emmanuel I, Selassie I, Jah, Rastafari. So the King of Kings now, Negus Haile Selassie the first, just to bring a clear understanding. Um, it's like the Atlas. Listen, you've heard me give this explanation before, eh? There was this cartoon, this Superman cartoon. Some of you know exactly where I'm going. Where this comet, hear this now, man, this is the Superman cartoon. Where this comet was coming to planet Earth. And whatever it is that they were trying, they couldn't divert the comet. And Superman decided to be the living sacrifice. And Superman flew out there to the comet and met the comet in space. And if I am correct, he didn't try to assault the comet. He opened his chest, the S on Superman chest. He opened his chest, and the comet licked into Superman. But the comet, broke up into different pieces and went different directions. But the impact flung Mr. Superman back to planet Earth, and he hit the ground hard, and the people came around because it was well known what he was going to do, and Lois Lane and whoever else, and the Superman was severely wounded. And as I said that, I remember what the woman said in the same documentary, Footsteps of the Emperor. She said, "The Emperor's tears will ever stay with me." Yeah. So anyway, but Superman was still alive, but he got a serious blow. And that is, Michael, the archangel in the book of Daniel. Michael, your prince, shall stand in the breach. He that shall take the blow for many. That's what the crucifixion of Christ is all about. He bear the sins of the whole world. If Mussolini and Hitler royal family would have gotten their wish, this planet that we are on would be nothing like this. At this time, it would be a totally different world. Many people don't grasp that at all. All of these independent African countries got their independence because Ethiopia preserved its independence. And as we say that this is the anniversary of the Battle of Dogali, Ras Alula, 1887, destroying the Italians in 5 minutes. 500 of them going down at the great general's hand, Abanega. We spoke of that on the Tiger's Nest. Those of you who are not subscribers to the Tiger's Nest, we would encourage you to definitely get your subscription in order. Just email us, priestisaacInstitute@gmail.com. So we won't go into that here, but we went into depths. The Tiger's Nest, Rasalula, the Battle of Godali, the Battle of Gundet, 1875, the Battle of Gurra, 1876, the mighty general with Johannes IV on those events, conquered the British, the back Egyptians. But Dogali was Alula alone. Well, not alone, but without his emperor Johannes IV on the battlefield with him, defending the access to the sea. Very important, eh? Very important subject area. I, for sure, am a defender for the access to the sea. So the Red Sea, Ethiopia, I'm talking about. Let's be clear here. So again, the victory on the 5th of May, 1941, it sent ripples throughout the world. That is why, again, Ghana could get its independence when it did. And Togo and Benin and Kenya and Uganda and everything started to free up. I had to explain to some good friends just the other day that Nelson Mandela had to come to Ethiopia for training. He received a name, a passport, and a gun to go around about African freedom fight. Kwame Nkrumah, the pictures are there at the feet of Haile Selassie I. That's why we rise the red, gold, and green with the red up in Ghana. So we know it would be a different world, Rastafari, if Mussolini and Hitler would have had their way. The Superman that flew out and had to meet the comet so that the world get free. The tears of the emperor shall ever be with me, the woman said. Jupiter, who attracts all these deadly asteroids, meteorites, and comets, Shu, Maker, the Maker man, Levi, would have ran into Jupiter in 1994 after being broken up on a previous orbit around the planet, and would begin to bombard the planet from the 16th of July and give the planet its last hit on the Earth Day of Emperor Haile Selassie I, the king of the gods in a man, Jupiter, 12-year cycle. Jupiter we're talking about, the magnetosphere, the greatest in the solar system. The gravitational pull affects the rotation and the slight revolution of the sun around something there. Jupiter does all of that. The radiation band that rips objects apart, probes and comets, etc. Jupiter royal family. Remember, Shoemaker Levy was literally orbiting the planet, not the sun. It's considered a second sun. Some people consider it a second star, the fifth planet, 5 bleeding moons, 5 times the distance of planet Earth to the sun. Yeah, don't take the 5 for a joke. Just want to highlight in conclusion, family, even in relation to Jupiter and where we are right now today. Of course, you know that we celebrated in joy and glee the feast of Tekla Hymenet on the 2nd day of January for our Earth Strong. So the information I'm going to give you right now is extremely important to me. Should be important to everyone. And again, this is not astrology we're dealing with. I think anyone that is really open-minded and even paying attention can see, okay, this is some serious stuff. As I said, we celebrated our 50th Earth Strong in Ethiopia. Zion Train Lodge, very memorable time for me. Very, very memorable, very thankful. The feast of Tekla Hymenet. And yes, those who will be visiting us for the resurrection tour, yes, Zion Train Lodge is also a part of that package, part 1 of the tour. This is something that doesn't happen regularly. On the 3rd of January, that day, the 3rd of January, is known as the parahelion. What is parahelion? Parahelion is when the sun is closest to the earth. That's the parahelion, the prairie lion, as Akibika would say. That happens every 3rd of January, 2nd going into the 3rd. That's just the reality, the closest point for the sun is to the earth. Now, on that same evening, the 3rd of January, you had a super moon. And the super moon itself is a full moon when the moon is at what is called a perigee. That is its closest point to the earth. So follow me good, eh? The sun has its parahelion, while the moon has the perigee. And the moon does this once every month. What did I say? The moon comes to its closest point once every month. It's not a rare event. It happens every month. The moon has a distance away, its furthest distance, which is known as apogee, and then the moon has its closest distance, which is known as perigee. So the moon now was at its closest distance, which would be about 363,000 kilometers um, 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 away from the earth, its closest point on the 3rd of January. But what stands out here is that this was a full moon. Now, the moon is not always full. Follow me, family. The moon is not always full when it's at its closest point. In fact, that's what you call a supermoon. A supermoon is when the moon is at its closest point to the planet Earth and the moon is full. That is a supermoon. All right, so the supermoon now itself was called the wolf moon. That is what they were referring to it as in the scientific world. So anyway, this wolf moon was a full moon. It would appear 14 times, not times, 14% larger than it usually does and would be 30% brighter. And it really was bright. All right. So this doesn't happen often. The sun is at its closest point to the earth, and the moon is at its closest point to the earth, and the moon is full. That doesn't happen often because remember, it must be the 3rd of January right away. That's for sure. If it's nothing between the 2nd and 3rd of January and maybe the 4th, depending on the science and the full moon, anything beyond that, the sun has already started to go back out. So the moon now must be full on maybe one of these 3 days. And it hit it on the 3rd day, the key point, and is at its closest point as well. So the moon got to be at its closest point to the earth, and it has to be full on the 3rd of January or the day before or the day after for this sort of event and meditation to take place. This is a lot of power here. We've been talking about magnetospheres. We've been talking about gravitational pull. We've been talking about radiation bands and electromagnetic fields and something taking place when you see these things happen. It's not just a super moon and a full moon and the sun is closest to the earth. It's happening at the same time, the exact same time. That's January 2026 I'm talking about. Okay, good. Let's move on. So now on the 4th of January, you had a specific meteor shower. Now the 3rd and the 4th were highlight days for this. And this meteor shower, known as the Quadratid meteor shower, took place over the constellation known as Bootes. Now this meteor shower would be happening for several days, but it comes to its climax on the 3rd and the 4th of January. Now, the moon literally met Gemini in the constellation or met Jupiter in the constellation of Gemini. Hear me good. I'm talking of January 2026, where we are right now. I'm sure you comprehend, We're talking about Jupiter. All right. The moon met Jupiter like they were side by side in the feminine constellation, feminine aspect of the constellation Gemini. Now, this is important why I highlight the feminine aspect, because they will meet again in a different part of Gemini. This is very deep. Just follow me good. So Gemini Pollux, as they call it, Tefnut, would have housed Jupiter plus the moon. Remember, the moon moves very fast. The moon moves from one constellation to the next constellation in like about a day's time. In fact, at midnight it might be in one constellation, and by 10 o'clock the next 10 p.m. that same day, it would be in another constellation. And this is why again, another plug coming here. This is why again, when we do the natal charts, we always specify that you put in, try your best to get the exact time that you were born. Those who were born, I guess, maybe in the 90s and for sure in the new millennium, I'm sure the time of birth is also on your birth certificates. But those who were born 50 years ago, we ain't got no time on no birth certificates. Your mother would have to tell you that. So for sure, because just the moon, just to say you were born on this day, the moon would have moved almost maybe 20 something degrees by the end of the full day. That's almost in another constellation. So it's important to know the time, and that is to show you how swift the moon is. So the moon would have met with Jupiter on the 4th, and then the moon would have met with the Beehive cluster, which is M44 on the 5th of January. Follow me good. The moon, the movements of the moon this month is very, very interesting. The Beehive cluster is an energy portal all by itself. It's in the constellation of Cancer, which we call Kepra, M44, Mizir 44, and that's the Beehive cluster. Okay, that's a very important object in the heavens. It looks like a fuzzy, just a fuzzy, when you look at it, maybe sometimes even through a telescope. And then the next day, the sun was in the constellation of Leo, not the sun, pardon me. The moon was in the constellation of Leo, the lion. That is Regulus now. It was close to the star, the 4 foot of the foot of the constellation Leo, the lion, one of the more vivid constellations. Now, on the 10th of January this year, the same planet Jupiter was in opposition to the sun. That means that Jupiter would be at the climax of our sky at midnight, because the Earth would be perfectly between Jupiter and the sun. That's very serious. That's a serious vortex there. That's a serious portal. That's nothing to skin at. So after the 10th, Jupiter would have gone into retrograde. Remember, retrograde is when a planet on its path appears to stop and just start to reverse. Now, what happens here is as if, remember, you are on your own orbit and Jupiter is on its own orbit. And it's like you're running a race. They're on their own lane and you're on your own lane. And you're in the inner lane. So when you pass them, you're running faster than them. And when you pass them, they appear to reverse as if they're going backwards. That's the same thing that happens when these planets go into retrograde, because the Earth is passing Jupiter now. So it's between the sun and Jupiter. It's between that tug, that line that connects the barycenter of Jupiter and the sun. The moon, the Earth is on that line. That's deep. That energy field, that's heavy. And then Jupiter begins to go in retrograde. Now again, you see, that may mean nothing to you if you didn't understand all what we explained prior. Yeah, Jove, Jovia. That's how Baba Shanti said it. Jovia. And the 18th now, which was Timkat. The 19th, but we're talking about the full moon. The 18th was a full moon. And remember, 18th in the West is different in the sense that when you understand the time frame, especially with a full moon, they give full moon dates, but the moon becomes full at a specific time. And when you consider east and west dates, it's something to look into. The moon was full for Timcat. We already did the program on Timcat prior to this, where we went into the link of the astronomical realms. You can add this to it, the full moon, the moon that deals with the water, the new moon, pardon me, new moon, pardon me, the new moon, which is that's the moon that's with the sun. The new moon was there for Timcat, and the moon is water, full or new. You know it deals with the tide of the water. So, and the reaction of many people, you know that for sure. That proves that these objects affect people. If a full moon and new moon can make you behave differently, and I know that for a fact, that proves that these objects affect people. Jupiter must affect people too. The fact that the Earth is passing between Jupiter and the Sun, and we have an opposition, and Jupiter goes into retrograde, it must affect people. Whether you know it, feel it, whatever, something going on. And then on the 23rd, the day everybody was looking forward to, the moon met Saturn and Neptune and gave that smiley face that how many of you saw it? It wasn't as smiley as some of those graphics we're trying to put together. But anyway, give thanks. And on the 27th, the moon is in Pleiades, meeting with Pleiades, I should say. It's in the Taurus constellation. We would have put a short up on YouTube and on TikTok and Instagram where we highlight that, you know, those little mystic vibration clips. Listen to this, family. On the last day of the month, the 31st day of January, the moon will meet Jupiter again. And they will meet in the same Gemini, but this time they will meet between the male and the female aspect. Now, how is that? Because Jupiter went into retrograde, so it reversed back. And now he's in between both Shu and Tefnut and will meet the moon there on the last day of the month. And that is the day, royal family, that the 50% will come to an end on the first half of the Ethiopian tour, resurrection tour. And it's also the day when the 50% will come to an end on the ancient astronomy course, rudiments of ancient astronomy. So I encourage you to definitely get enrolled into that course. And it's also the day when the 50% will come to an end as it relates to your natal chart reading. So I would encourage you to do that as well. And the quicker you set up your natal chart, the better it is, because the natal chart is a kind of standing line thing. You have to wait in line. It's not something you get right away. And trust me, it is worth it when you get it. Anyone can tell you that. So we have until the end of January. And remember, you know, those of you who are planning to come for the resurrection tour, remember you pay 50%, not the 50% off now. You pay a 50% down payment of whatever the price will be when you decide to register. And then you get more information as it relates to, you know, the grace period you have for the refund. But as I said, we have a brochure. You email me, you get the brochure. There's a link in the description below for a video that we did going through the brochure. Not long at all. Just giving you a quick understanding of what the brochure is saying. So you know exactly how payments made and the whole procedure and all that's involved and all that's included, all inclusive, by the way, food and transportation and accommodations, and of course high standard as well. So everything is set, everything is perfect. We encourage you again to press the link and get all the information. And of course the email is right there. Just email us. As I said, the homeschool program, it is not at the moment on any special, but it's very, very special. Only $200, for the homeschool program. And we are talking about 10 months, just constant daily classes prepared and designed for the young minds. It is something that I'm sure you will be very happy with. Yes, Royal Family, that's it. Give thanks for your presence. Give thanks for the love. Give thanks for the patient listening. Give thanks for your attention. Praise Farai. Let the earth hear his voice. Let the people rejoice. Holy Emmanuel I. Selassie I. Jah Rastafari. Give thanks.